I think this is the easiest, most foolproof way to instantly and drastically improve the quality of your audio. It might sound too good to be true, but if you're a singer, narrator, or other voice artist, and you've been struggling to get more professional sounding audio, this is the real deal. In this video, I'm going to review and compare the ISOVOX 2 and ISOVOX GO vocal isolation booths to help you decide whether they might be a good fit for you. I will have plenty of before and after samples if you want to skip ahead and see how big of a difference these things really make, but first I want to talk about the details as well as my personal experience. The ISOVOX 2 is their flagship isolation booth, and the ISOVOX GO is lighter weight and meant to pack down into a smaller footprint for travel. If you record in a home studio, you know what it's like trying to record with barking dogs, leaf blowers, whining kids, air conditioning compressors, the list goes on. Both booths do a really good job at reducing echo and reverb, and the ISOVOX 2 in particular does a good job at blocking external sounds, as well as keeping internal sounds within the booth from getting out. It's not going to do as good of a job as a fully self-contained booth within a room itself, so if you're forced to record with all kinds of constant noise around you, that's still going to be your best bet. I work from home as a content creator, and my wife does as well as an audiobook narrator. We both have sound-treated spaces to varying degrees, but the difference when adding the ISOVOX booths was night and day. I originally got these to help in my microphone reviews, but somehow after hearing the samples, the ISOVOX 2 permanently ended up in her space. When it comes to setup, the ISOVOX 2 uses heavy-duty Velcro and zippers, and the ISOVOX GO pieces together kind of like a 3D puzzle. I'm not going to go into all the setup details because they already have really good setup instruction videos for that. What I will say is that it's very straightforward and simple, and once they're all put together, they were surprisingly sturdy. The ISOVOX GO retails for $749, although I do occasionally see it on sale. It comes with the booth, a mic holder, a light, a stand, and a travel case. The ISOVOX 2 is available in multiple colors for around $1,000, with the difference being a heavier duty stand and the lack of a travel case because it's more geared towards a permanent setup. If you're a vocal performer and you've looked into fully self-contained booths, you know that $5,000 can just be the starting point, and they can easily reach into 5 figures. Yes, the ISOVOX booths are not cheap, but compared to the alternatives or the cost of completely acoustically treating a room, they are relatively inexpensive. Another huge selling point for these is that you don't need a dedicated recording space to use them. The majority of home recording seems to be done in a closet or just the corner of a room, and there's nothing nearly as effective as these while taking up as little space. Another reason I wanted to point out that these booths work so well is that when you're using them, you end up recording about 9 to 12 inches away instead of a fist away, without sounding like you're actually farther from the mic. The big benefit there is that you almost completely eliminate unwanted sibilants and plosives, and you just get a more natural and balanced sound. Now, there are a couple of things that I was worried about before trying these out that I wanted to share in case you're having the same thoughts. Number one is that I was worried it would get kind of hot and stuffy in there, especially during extended recording sessions. I found that not to be the case simply because the airflow around my body outside of the booth is so good. My wife constantly records multiple hour-long sessions in her booth with the air conditioning off for good measure, with no complaints. The second thing is that I wasn't quite sure how I would feel having my head stuck inside the booth while recording, but I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought. It totally blocks out distractions, so it actually helps me focus, and I really love how it sounds like I'm talking inside of a marshmallow while I'm recording. The last thing is that I wasn't sure how it would go having a phone or an iPad in there with me for a script while I was recording. I thought that maybe having a hard reflective surface in there would negatively impact the effectiveness of the booth, or that it might be hard to scroll through a long script or manuscript. In my testing, it makes no noticeable difference in the sound. For longer scripts, we ended up getting a little Bluetooth remote for around $20 that makes it easy to navigate documents. After using that, I would highly recommend using one even if you're not using a booth at all. Although I don't have it, ISOVOX does make a phone and tablet holder to hold your phone or iPad on the back wall above the microphone. It's not necessary, but it does look really handy and might just be my next purchase. So all of that sounds promising, but none of that matters unless these things do what they say they do and make your audio sound way better. I'll be using the Lewitt Ray in my sound comparisons, which, out of the hundreds of mics that I've tested, has earned a permanent spot on my boom arm. I think it's arguably the best overall microphone for any kind of voice work, and it has features for voice artists that no other mic has, so I highly recommend checking out that video after watching this one. With all that said, all of the samples are recorded from as close to the same distance as possible throughout to make it a fair comparison. First, here are some samples recorded in our home studio spaces without and then with the ISOVOX GO and ISOVOX 2. This is what my voice sounds like recording in a relatively well sound-treated home studio geared towards content creation without an ISOVOX booth. This is what my voice sounds like recording in a home studio with sound treatment for audiobook narration with no vocal isolation booth. This is what my voice sounds like recording in those same spaces, but this time within the ISOVOX GO vocal isolation booth. This is my voice recording in those same spaces, but this time inside the ISOVOX 2 vocal isolation booth.
This is what my voice sounds like recording in a relatively well sound-treated home studio without an ISOVOX booth. This is what my voice sounds like recording in a sound-treated home studio designed for narration without an ISOVOX booth. This is what my voice sounds like recording in those same spaces, but within the ISOVOX GO vocal isolation booth. This is what my voice sounds like recording in those same spaces, but within the ISOVOX 2 vocal isolation booth.
Now I'll show you how good they are at blocking unwanted sound using a custom-designed, ultra-annoying WAV file. This is what unwanted noise can sound like without any kind of vocal isolation booth. This is what that same unwanted noise sounds like from the same distance at the same volume, this time within the ISOVOX GO. This is what those same unwanted sounds sound like recording within the ISOVOX 2 vocal isolation booth. Lastly, here are some comparisons with these booths in a totally untreated space with very unfavorable acoustics. This is what my voice sounds like recording in a totally untreated space with a lot of hard, flat, reflective surfaces. This is what my voice sounds like recording in that same untreated space, but within the ISOVOX GO vocal isolation booth. This is what my voice sounds like in that same untreated space, but within the ISOVOX 2 vocal isolation booth. So what do you think? Leave a comment and let me know if you heard as big of a difference as you thought you would. I think the ISOVOX 2 is the easiest, most foolproof way to get more professional sounding audio. The cost and effort it takes to set up and use this thing versus a traditional booth or fully acoustically treating an entire room is kind of incomparable. And again, that's if you even have a dedicated room for recording and have that option. The ISOVOX GO, in my opinion, is absolutely unbeatable if you need to do any kind of recording while you travel. From a narration perspective, it's perfect for if you need to go out of town, but still need to get some auditions in or some last-minute changes to a project. Links are in the description, and if you buy anything at all after clicking my links, that's the best way to support my channel at no extra cost to you. That's it for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.